I'm Sari.
And I'm Haley.
And this is Seamwork Radio. Welcome back to Seamwork Radio, everybody. So right now, we're getting ready to start the next round of Design Your Wardrobe. And if you don't know what Design Your Wardrobe is, it's a 3-week class that we open twice a year. And the intent is to help you design your sewing for the next season and help you to create a plan so that you can make things that you actually really want to wear and that really reflect who you are. It's a lot of fun, and signups are open right now. So if you're interested, go to seamwork.com/wardrobe and you can learn more about that. So when you sign up for Design Your Wardrobe, you start with something called the Style Workshop. And that helps you to pinpoint your unique style before heading into the whole process of actually choosing what you want to make. So it's really helpful to help you kind of understand not just what you like, but really the meaning behind it for you and how your style relates to who you are as a person. So today we wanted to talk a little bit about that. And the reason that we wanted to talk about that is that a lot of us have gone through some pretty serious life changes in the last year and a half. I know that I have. Haley, I'm sure that you have too.
Oh, yeah. That's putting it lightly.
Yeah, I think everybody has. So we're going to cover our tips for thinking about and really uncovering your style when your life shifts and changes. And that's really what we wanted to talk about today. So just to start us off, our icebreaker for today, Haley, if you were to describe your style right now in 3 words, what would you choose?
Ooh, this is hard because I'm kind of in a point in my life where my style is definitely shifting. So I'm still really pinpointing those core elements of my style. So I have been thinking a little bit about this lately. I think one word is classic. To me, classic can mean a lot of different things. And to me, I'm thinking more like classic 70s rock and roll denim band tees vibe. It's definitely a style that always resonates with me. I like things that are kind of imperfect. So imperfect would be another word. But I also like a touch of romantic style and that softness to everything to add a little bit of contrast to the classic and imperfection side of things. What about you, Sari?
That's really interesting. The word classic, I think when we've surveyed people in the past or asked people in the Seamwork community in the past about this, that's one of the most popular words. And it's so interesting because it means different things to each individual, I think.
To everyone, but I can't really find a good word to replace it. I feel like it's cool that it has a different meaning to everyone and it's your own secret language. But yeah, I'm struggling to find another word to really identify what it is that I'm trying to convey.
I think some of my words, I resonate with your words too. I think our styles are not that dissimilar. So that might be why. I think for me, the word classic does resonate with me, but I think a word that's resonating with me more right now is timeless. I really want clothes that are going to last and that I can wear for many, many years to come. So that's one. I think workwear for me right now, because, and we'll get into this a little bit more later when we talk about life changes, but I'm moving to the country right now. I'm in the process of moving. I've got a lot of boxes stacked up behind me. Just my lifestyle's changing and I'm wearing a lot more very, very practical clothing. So that would be one. I like the romantic side too, and that contrast. I do wear a lot of kind of romantic things. I don't know if romantic is exactly the word I would choose, though. I'm struggling with that one because I don't know, that has a lot of different connotations to me, but maybe I like the word softness that you use because I do think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, for me, the romantic element comes more in textiles and softness is I think maybe would be more appropriate really, because I do like to mix silks and maybe some more luxurious fabrics, but still while keeping it very casual.
Yeah. I think simplicity is also important to me, and that comes in as well. I'm breaking my own rule and choosing a 4th word though. So but if I were gonna have an alternate, that would be it. Because I do although I don't think the cuts and silhouettes I wear are all that simple, but the colors are. I do like to have kind of a constrained color palette. So it just helps me to mix and match things better and not have as much stuff when you keep things constrained like that.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm curious to hear from our listeners too. So if you guys want to share with us, you can leave us a review and tell us in the comments or add us on Instagram at Seamwork. And be sure to hashtag it Icebreakers for Makers, and we'll take a look at your answers. We want to know what your 3 style words are right now in your life and if they've changed. Share those with us. We'd love to hear.
Yeah. I think that the hard part about narrowing down your style is that there's really so much choice. As creative people, I think we are like sponges for creative input, and we're constantly soaking in all of that input. And sometimes it can be really hard to just narrow them down and hone in and identify what is truly you. And it's really hard to make choices around your style when there's a lot of great stuff out there and so many different styles that you might like. I think that's probably the core challenge in identifying your style.
Yeah, I think that's a really big challenge for a lot of people and myself too. It's gotten a little easier as I've gotten older. You naturally find what works for you a little bit more as the years go on. But there's still, I like a lot of different things that aren't necessarily practical for me or aren't really who I am, but I really love them on other people. And so it's very tempting to just keep accumulating those things into my life. And so I think that's why it's so helpful to really step back and think about who you are, and not just who you are, but who you are in your life right now, and being open to changes and how your style might be different than it was 5 years ago or even 1 year ago. And I think for a lot of us, probably that's true right now, especially after the last year and a half of we're recording this in the summer of 2021, and we've just gone through a global pandemic, and things have changed for a lot of people. So being open to that change and really thinking about your life in this moment. So just as an example, I mentioned that I'm moving right now. So when you move, obviously you go through all your stuff and you get rid of a lot of things. I was just talking to a friend of mine about this, and when she moved, how they hired a dumpster to come to their house, and all the kids were like throwing stuff in the dumpster, and how fun it was to just get rid of things, which sounds kind of amazing. But I am going through all this stuff, and I have a lot of really cool vintage clothing, like really beautiful things that I've acquired over the years. A lot of it I haven't worn in many, many years. It's part of it, I guess it feels like a collection, like any other collection that you have that you might not use, but you still love. But I just realized that it's not really who I am. It's not getting use. Why not give it to somebody who is going to really use and love and appreciate it? For me, that was a matter of really thinking about, who am I right now? Am I holding on to this because I'm holding on to a part of my past, a part of who I was? Am I holding on to it just because it's hard to let things go? And really asking myself some of those kind of tough questions. And I think that's where, thinking about your style may seem sort of silly and trivial to some people, but really it's a way to explore who you are and explore the changes in your life. And I don't think that's trivial at all.
Yeah, I think that when you reframe it from thinking about like visually what you enjoy, and that's an important element too, but when you shift the focus from that to deeply reflecting about your identity and your life, that's where you're really going to find the gold in all of this. And I think when you look at that, you can get to the bottom of your style a little bit more easily.
Yeah. And that's why I like things like Design Your Wardrobe and the Style Workshop, because it really gives you a chance to step back and look at it and through a structured process and with other people, and ask yourself those questions, which you may not have a chance to ask yourself normally.
Yeah, definitely. So, just to kind of go over the style workshop a little bit with you, if you're unfamiliar, it has 3 different stages. The first stage is investigate. So, in this stage, you take a look at the deeper aspects of your personal style and who you are, the kind of stuff that Sari and I were just talking about. In stage 2, you examine. And so you process your thoughts and your feelings about your clothing to better understand what it is that you value. And then in stage 3, you define. So in this stage, you're creating a core style from what you've learned in the first 2 stages, and you define it with words and then visuals. But in today's episode, we're going to talk about the investigating stage.
Yeah. So again, the style workshop is an exercise that you go through in the first part of Design Your Wardrobe, which is the 3-week program we were talking about, just to clarify if you're not familiar with it. It's kind of the first step in understanding your style before you start making plans. And actually, when you go through Design Your Wardrobe, you actually create a plan for a small little collection of clothing for you to sew. Today, I just want to talk a little bit about that investigate stage. There's a lot in the style workshop that you can go through, but we had some other thoughts and kind of methods or questions you could ask yourself as you investigate your style, whether you go through the style workshop with us or whether you just want to ask these on your own. I thought we'd share those and talk a little bit about those. So the first one is to investigate your style. One thing that I think is really helpful, and I touched on this earlier, is just to go through your closet and really think about which are the items and which are the outfits that still resonate with you today. So if you've been going through a lot of changes, then you may have things in your closet that really, like I was talking about with all that beautiful vintage clothing, you may love it, but it may not actually be who you are today. And that's okay. And, I think that's just part of the process of growing. Don't you think, Haley?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think we've talked about this in previous episodes about like letting go. I think specifically about your me-made garments. I think that those can be particularly hard to let go of, but also like those one-of-a-kind pieces and really sitting with it and thinking, are you keeping it for sentimental reasons or are you keeping it because it's of actual use to you in your life where you are right now?
Yeah. And I do think it's okay to keep some stuff for sentimental reasons, but you do have to kind of ask yourself at least the question of how much you want to keep just for sentimental reasons and why you're actually keeping it. Are you just keeping it as a keepsake, or are you keeping it because you just have trouble letting go? Or there are a lot of reasons. So I think it's worth asking the question.
And in contrast to that, I think it's really interesting to identify those pieces in your closet that you've had for maybe years that you still love to wear and thinking about why it is that those are still really resonate with you.
Yeah, absolutely. That kind of brings us to the second question that I think is really helpful, which is what are the sources of inspiration in your life that have been constant like that and that you still find inspiring? I think that is also a very helpful question when thinking about your own personal core style and what it means for you individually and how it reflects who you are there threads throughout your life that just continue on, and what is the deeper place that comes from? Why are those things so important to you?
I think this is one of the reasons that you and I have so much overlap in our taste is because I think that we've gone through like similar phases throughout our lives style wise. And so there's little like nuggets of those things that you hold on to even when you change. And I don't, dress like Courtney Love anymore, but there's like, but there's like still like that part of me that loves that like imperfect and that contrast and tension in style.
Hmm. Yeah, that's really interesting. I think that might be a big part of it. I think values are also a big part of it. And I think that has something to do with how the stages that you go through in your life too, your life experience. I think as your values evolve, your style evolves, and those things kind of translate into where you are at today. And I just think that's so interesting.
Totally. It's all very like interwoven.
Yeah, I was just thinking about what are the things that have been sources of inspiration in my life that are constant and that I still find really inspiring. And I come back to, style icons that I have always admired, people that I think their way of being, their presence really resonates with me. I feel like one of my big style icons is Patti Smith. I just love her. I think she's incredible as a human, as an artist, as her personal style is just like very, very specific. I absolutely love her. And that's something that's just a constant source of inspiration that goes beyond aesthetics.
Yeah, definitely. And those kind of like layers of aesthetics and values that we were just talking about. Yeah, she just like kills it on every level for me. Definitely a huge source of inspiration. Another one for me is Joni Mitchell. I love just like, she's another person that just like, as an artist and a human and writer and songwriter, I'm like, wow, what a gem.
Both are women who are artists, and they're also very much their own person. There's nobody like them. The same with, it's funny, these are all musicians, but Kate Bush is also another huge inspiration for me, just on an artistic level, on a creative level, the way she carries herself, the way she's dressed throughout the years, just her individuality really, I think, is just so inspiring to me. And I think that tells you something about what I value, just thinking about those kinds of things. So
we could do a whole episode on icons.
Oh, we should. We should.
I love it.
We could share ours. I would love to hear what other people's are. We had a great thread in the CMARC community about this. I want to say Ashley started maybe, but it was unexpected style icons. I think it was something like that. And there were some really, really great photos shared there.
Oh my gosh.
Really
I'm going to go dig it up after this.
Yeah, we should put it in the show notes too. It was awesome. So far, we've talked about a couple things. We talked about going through your closet and thinking about which items or outfits resonate with you and which ones don't. What are the sources of inspiration in your life that have been really constant throughout the years? And then this one is kind of what we were talking about earlier. What are the changes that are going on for you? And how do you need to maybe adapt the way you dress for that life that you're living right now? We all go through stages in our life, obviously, and sometimes those stages are very recognizable, and you know when you're entering a new stage of life, and sometimes it kind of sneaks up on you. So I think it's a great question to ask yourself is, how has my life changed, and do I need to adapt to those changes? Don't you think?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think we're all going through this like big collective shift with the last year of the pandemic and all of that. And I think a lot of us are emerging feeling really different. And maybe that was an expected sensation for some, and for some, maybe it snuck up on you a bit.
Yeah. I don't think any of us expected the pandemic to happen, though. So I think, or maybe some preppers did, but
Yeah.
not many.
I think for me, it was more of the like being at home with a baby who then became a toddler. I was like really in survival mode all the time. And now that we're kind of emerging out the other side of it, I'm like, wow, okay. Like I just feel kind of dumbfounded by it.
Yeah. For me, I think the whole experience, I think this happens a lot when you have a really dramatic experience in your life. So I think a lot of people probably have gone through this too in the last year, which is just that it just forces you to ask yourself some questions about what you really value, what you want out of your life. I mean, this happens when you have any kind of big trauma, or at least for me, it has. So I feel like the pandemic forced me to ask those questions, and that caused me to make some really big changes. In addition to the ones that were forced on me by circumstances, there's also the changes that I've now chosen, which is, as I mentioned, we're moving to the country, and it's going to be like a completely, completely different lifestyle. And so really examining what that means for me and how I want to adapt. Also how much I need, really. I think that a lot of people have probably asked themselves during the pandemic, how much do I really need? Because you're probably wearing only a small fraction of the clothing you have. So I think that's another question that this has forced upon us. And then riffing on that, what are the practical constraints of that new normal for you? If you have a new normal, what are not just, how do you want to dress for this new life, but what are the actual practical considerations that you have to make now? So for me, with moving, as I said, I was just packing my stuff, and I have some shoes that are white. I have a pair of white boots that are really cute. I've worn them in the past somewhat. I haven't really worn them in the last year. And I looked at them and I was like, how am I going to wear these on a muddy property with gravel roads? When am I going to use these? So just kind of thinking about that, and maybe you still want to keep that stuff, but maybe it's time to let go of some things.
Totally. I feel the same with earrings right now. I have a grabby toddler. Like, I love like a cool pair of earrings, but like that is just like, that's getting pushed to the back of the jewelry box right now.
Yeah, I can imagine some dangerous scenarios with that. Kind of creeps me out just thinking about the possibilities.
I know, but you know me, I like love gross stories. So I'm like, I'm like imagining all of the horrific possibilities and like cringing in weird, creepy delight.
At the great stories you'd be able to tell afterwards.
Yeah, definitely.
The other thing that kind of follows from this, I think, when we're talking about style and life changes, is who do you imagine yourself being in 5 or 10 years? That's a matter of style, but it's also thinking about if you really want to have clothing that's going to last, if you really want to make clothing that you're going to wear for a long time and that you're going to get a lot of use out of. And maybe you don't. Not everybody has that goal, I know. But I personally do. And I think a lot of people who sew do, because you put a lot of effort into what you're making. And so, even though trends are fun, I think most of us also want to have things that we're going to keep around for a long time and love for a long time. Thinking about who you really picture yourself as in 5 or 10 years. And you may not know exactly, but I think that can help to kind of clarify what is important to you in your style. So we've talked about looking towards the past, but I think it's important to also think about your future and who you want to be and some of your aspirations as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kind of that like dress for the job you want type situation. Dress for the life you want.
Yeah, exactly. I think for myself, like what I imagine myself in 5 to 10 years, and this just might be where I am right now with the move and everything, but just thinking about spending a lot more time outdoors, spending a lot more time in my garden. Maybe I want to get an active dog someday. That's one of my dreams that I can go running with. So things like that, that's going to cause me to make different choices in what I make and when I acquire than maybe a year ago or 2 years ago when I pictured myself still living in the city and, going to work every day. And it's just a different picture of my future.
I'm seeing like some dungarees in your in your future.
Lots of comfortable clothing.
Mm-hmm.
I think comfort has always been important to me, but now it's like, yeah, that's kind of what I want.
Yeah, that's the stuff right there.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have realized that.
Yeah, definitely. I was like looking in my closet the other day and I was like, oh, heels. Wow.
Remember them.
I remember the last time I wore high heels was to our Christmas party in 2019. And I was 39 weeks pregnant, and that was the last time I wore high heels.
Yeah, as I was packing, I was looking at mine too. I have this pair of, I don't wear like super uncomfortable shoes normally anyway, but I do have a pair of vintage Ferragamo heels that are they're like a spike heel. They're a true, like very classic stiletto type shoe, like beautiful shoes. I maybe have worn them one time. I think maybe also to a Christmas party of ours. and then they just kind of sit there, and I'm still debating whether to let them go. I still struggle with this.
Yeah, I look at my fancy stuff and I'm like, it'll be great for a Christmas party, but like, how many Christmas parties do I go to? Like, maybe 2 a year.
These are the hard questions.
The hard questions you need to ask yourself when you're doing the style workshop.
How many Christmas parties can I reasonably attend?
Okay, so we covered a lot of ground today, and we took some really fun detours along the way. So I am going to go back and kind of recap what we did go over. So we talked about the style workshop, which, if you aren't familiar, that is a little workshop that comes before Design Your Wardrobe, where you investigate, examine, and define your personal style so that you go into Design Your Wardrobe ready to plan your wardrobe with a little bit more information about what your style looks like right now in this moment. And we shared some tips about the investigate phase. And there's 5 tips we went through. Tip 1 was to review your closet and find the outfits that still really resonate with you and the ones that don't. Number 2 is find the constant sources of inspiration in your life and examine why you find them inspiring still. 3 is looking at some of the changes that are going on for you and how you'll need to adapt. 4 is looking at those practical constraints and examining your new normal. And 5 is really sitting down and imagining yourself in 5 or 10 years from now. So not getting too stuck in examining the past and the present, but really thinking about the big picture. So if you want to learn more about this, if this kind of stuff is your jam and you really need more of it in your life right now, we have some more recommendations for you. We have a podcast episode about the rule of 3 outfits. It is a really simple, kind of pared down way of thinking about creating a cohesive wardrobe. We will link it in the show notes, so check that out if that's of interest to you.
I think that's one of our most popular episodes so far.
Oh, yeah.
I was looking
Totally. It's based on an article that was in Seamwork magazine. I think that it's a really powerful tool. We're also going to link some articles in Seamwork that cover some of the Design Your Wardrobe principles. And then, of course, Design Your Wardrobe itself. Signups are still open if you're listening to this in real time. And if you are interested in signing up, which I highly, highly recommend, just go to seamwork.com/wardrobe. Again, we'll link that in the show notes. And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review to let us know what you think. It helps us to keep up the good work because we need encouragement sometimes. Mostly it helps other people who love sewing like you do to find our little podcast.
Yeah. And thank you to everybody who has left reviews lately. We really, really appreciate it. We love reading them. We read every single review and it absolutely thrills us when we get a new one.
Yeah. Yeah, we just went over them before recording this episode, and it definitely brought a smile to our faces.
Yeah, it's really fun. So thank you guys. We really, really appreciate it.
All right. Well, that is all we have for this episode of Seamwork Radio.
Seamwork Radio is brought to you by the team at Seamwork. Seamwork's an online community that supports you in creating a wardrobe that feels right for you. When you join us at Seamwork, you become part of our private community of makers, and you also get access to monthly sew-along classes, a library of over 200 sewing patterns, and tons of great resources to help guide you through the sewing adventure that you choose. Podcast listeners can get half off a Seamwork Unlimited membership, which means you can download as many of those 200 plus patterns as you want at any time, and our community will be there to guide and support you. If you'd like to join us for half off, just visit seamwork.com/go/podcast50. You can also find us on Instagram at Seamwork or visit our YouTube channel, which is called Seamwork Video. We love hearing from you, so let us know if there's a topic or a personal story that you'd like us to cover. Thanks for listening to Seamwork Radio.